The silence of an airport hall shattered in seconds. Jungkook, the member of BTS who is usually defined by calm control, suddenly lost his composure before the eyes of hundreds, while Jimin, standing just steps away, appeared overwhelmed with tears. What force of pressure could push the group's strongest pillars into such visible cracks? Why did this unfold in front of cameras that never blink, in front of fans who believe they know every expression, every gesture, every breath? The questions burned across social media the moment the footage surfaced, igniting disbelief and urgency across ARMY worldwide. The moment itself was brief, but unforgettable. Jungkook, stepping out of a black van surrounded by bright lights and relentless cameras, did not carry his usual neutral expression. His jaw was tight, his stride unusually sharp, and his eyes restless as he looked around with irritation. Within seconds, a frustrated outburst broke free, a flash of anger so rare that it unsettled even those who had followed him for years. At the very same time, Jimin, who had been walking closely behind, was seen wiping his eyes with visible difficulty, appearing shaken and emotionally unguarded. The collision of Jungkook's anger and Jimin's tears created a scene that fans were utterly unprepared for, leaving the global fandom in collective shock. To understand why this single incident erupted with such intensity, one must look beyond the surface. For years, BTS has existed at the center of global attention, a phenomenon that erases the line between admiration and intrusion. Every arrival, every departure, every private step is followed, recorded, and dissected in real time. Jungkook has long been portrayed as resilient to these pressures, his image shaped by professionalism and discipline. Yet even the strongest facade can fracture under unrelenting surveillance. His outburst was not simply a random loss of temper, it was the visible breaking point of years of endurance against invisible weight. Witnesses at the scene described the suffocating atmosphere. Fans pressed too close, cameras extended into personal space, phones raised inches from faces. The air was thick with noise, flashes, and bodies collapsing into one another. In this chaos, Jungkook's reaction appeared less like aggression and more like an instinctive cry for space. His expression carried not malice, but exhaustion, a demand for air where none existed. And then, as his frustration spilled out, Jimin, sensitive and often attuned to the emotional temperature around him, was overcome. His tears did not appear staged, they appeared human, a raw emotional response to witnessing his teammate break under pressure. The footage spread within minutes, multiplying across platforms. Clips replayed endlessly, slowed down, zoomed in, dissected frame by frame. Some fans admitted they watched with trembling hands, unable to reconcile the image of Jungkook's visible anger with the persona they thought they knew. Others defended him fiercely, insisting that no person should be forced to tolerate such suffocation. The discourse deepened further when attention shifted to Jimin's tears. Why was he crying? Was it purely empathy for Jungkook, or had the shared pressure reached both simultaneously? Each theory only fueled more questions, and with each replay, the intensity of the moment grew heavier. This incident reveals more than one man's anger or another's tears. It reveals the high cost of global superstardom. Jungkook and Jimin are not isolated cases, but living examples of how relentless fame grinds against personal boundaries. Their humanity is tested at every turn. Airports that feel like arenas, streets that become hunting grounds, private lives dissected for public consumption. The world cheers their performances, but rarely acknowledges the toll of being treated as public property. The fact that Jungkook, usually unshakable, reached visible frustration, and that Jimin, usually composed, broke into tears, should not be dismissed as trivial. It should be recognized as a warning signal that the environment surrounding them has reached an intolerable threshold. Fans worldwide have now entered a state of collective reflection. Many confessed guilt over replaying the video, recognizing that even their curiosity contributes to the pressure. Others debated fiercely about accountability. Is it the fault of invasive individuals at the scene, or the larger culture that normalizes constant surveillance? These discussions reveal a painful paradox. Fans love their idols deeply, but sometimes love transforms into entitlement, erasing the respect for boundaries that love should protect. The very devotion that sustains BTS has also, at times, become the force that traps them. The emotional impact of Jimin's tears cannot be understated. Known for his empathy and emotional transparency, Jimin has often been the heart of BTS, the one most attuned to the feelings of others. His reaction in this moment served as a mirror, reflecting the strain that perhaps all members carry silently. If Jungkook's anger symbolized the breaking point of endurance, Jimin's tears symbolized the sorrow of witnessing a teammate forced into that corner. Together, they formed a dual image: anger and sorrow, defense and vulnerability, two responses to the same unbearable weight. Social media platforms became battlegrounds of interpretation. Some fans expressed alarm, worrying that these visible cracks could signal deeper struggles hidden from public view. Others speculated about possible triggers: a whispered insult, a camera shoved too close, or the constant leaking of private schedules. Each speculation highlighted one truth: the real issue is not a single moment, but the environment that created it. Fame without limits does not simply elevate, it corrodes and the larger context of K-pop. This incident is a mirror held up to the industry itself. The machinery of idol culture thrives on visibility, yet it rarely pauses to question how much visibility is sustainable for human beings. Jungkook's anger and Jimin's tears together have become a symbol, not just for ARMY, but for all who watch the industry unfold. A reminder that perfection projected onto screens is sustained by immense invisible suffering. Their humanity, revealed in those few seconds, is a call for recognition that goes beyond fandom. It is a call for reform in how idols are perceived, pursued, and protected. The silence that followed the incident was perhaps the most powerful statement of all. Neither Jungkook nor Jimin attempted to disguise what had happened with a rehearsed smile or quick apology. They walked forward, visibly carrying the weight of what just unfolded, leaving the world to interpret the rawness for itself. That silence echoed louder than words, leaving fans unsettled but forced to confront reality. These are not untouchable figures immune to pressure, but human beings whose limits are dangerously close. The critical question remains: what happens next? If nothing changes, will more such moments erupt, revealing the cost of neglecting idols' boundaries? Or will this serve as a wake-up call for fans, media, and industry alike, that even the brightest stars require shadows of privacy to survive? The image now etched into millions of screens, Jungkook's face sharp with frustration, Jimin's eyes wet with tears, has shattered illusions and forced a confrontation with truth. It is not merely a scandal, nor a fleeting moment of weakness. It is a warning. What will be remembered is not only Jungkook's anger or Jimin's tears, but the unspoken message behind them. Fame without restraint becomes a cage, and every cage eventually shakes. The world may choose to replay the footage endlessly, but the real story lies in what is ignored: the urgent need to see idols not as flawless figures, but as humans entitled to the same dignity as anyone else. The question lingers with haunting clarity: if boundaries continue to be ignored, what breaking point lies ahead? Underneath the noise of viral debates, one truth stands untouched. The moment between Jungkook's loss of control and Jimin's tears was not an isolated spectacle, but the culmination of years of pressure. What many fail to realize is that these idols, trained since adolescence to mask every emotion behind flawless professionalism, are often left with no outlet when boundaries are repeatedly crossed. Jungkook's voice, sharp with frustration, was not only directed at the crowd pressing in on him, it was directed at the very system that conditions artists to suppress, endure, and smile until silence becomes unbearable. For Jimin, the tears that followed were not simply weakness, but empathy weaponized by exhaustion. His tears revealed the invisible emotional labor he carries, not only for himself, but for those beside him. It is no coincidence that he broke at the very instant Jungkook cracked. BTS has always been defined by their unity, and what one member endures is felt by all. To see Jungkook, the member often regarded as resilient beyond measure, reach his breaking point was to see the collective weight of fame drag them all closer to collapse. This is why the incident resonates so deeply. It is not just about a sudden burst of anger, nor about a few tears caught on camera. It is about the erosion of humanity under relentless demand. It is about the point at which admiration curdles into entitlement and devotion becomes indistinguishable from suffocation. Fans now stand at a crossroads. Will they continue to replay the moment until it becomes entertainment stripped of meaning, or will they recognize it as a desperate call to restore respect for boundaries? What remains frozen in those frames is not scandal but truth. Jungkook's anger and Jimin's tears are not flaws to be explained away. They are warnings written in raw emotion. If ignored, the image of Jungkook's visible anger and Jimin's sudden tears continues to dominate global conversations. Yet an uncomfortable question now rises above the emotional reaction. Do we truly know what we saw? Or are we only consuming fragments presented through the lens of viral media? The incident, captured from multiple angles and replayed millions of times, has already been stamped into the collective memory of ARMY. But what if this memory is less about truth and more about perception? What if the very foundation of what we believe happened is built on unverified assumptions, amplified by algorithms that prioritize shock over accuracy? In the chaos of TikTok uploads, YouTube compilations, Twitter threads, and media headlines, the distinction between fact and interpretation has blurred. Did Jungkook truly lose control, or was his expression manipulated by selective editing? Were Jimin's tears a spontaneous human reaction, or could they have been filmed in a different context, only to be attached to this incident for maximum emotional effect? The gravity of these questions cannot be underestimated, for they demand that we confront not only the idol's humanity, but also our own susceptibility to manipulation. One must ask directly, are we witnessing the unraveling of two global icons, or are we participants in a carefully orchestrated spectacle designed to provoke engagement and harvest attention? If the former, then we are witnessing a cry for help that demands urgent recognition. If the latter, then millions of fans worldwide have been drawn into a narrative built on exaggeration and speculation. Which truth is real and which is illusion? Can we, as consumers of media, even distinguish the two any longer? Consider the machinery of sensationalism that thrives in modern entertainment culture. Clips are cut, slowed, and captioned. Facial expressions are magnified into symbolic gestures. Background noise is silenced to highlight dramatic moments. In this environment, how much of what we see remains untainted by manipulation? The original footage may have shown frustration, but when packaged across platforms hungry for virality, did that frustration morph into something far greater in meaning than reality intended? Skepticism, therefore, is not merely advisable but essential. Should we not question why this particular incident gained such overwhelming traction, while countless other moments of BTS's daily life fade into obscurity? Who decides which moments become headlines and which vanish unnoticed? And more importantly, who benefits from the eruption of global discourse over a few seconds of unverified footage? These questions unsettle because they force us to confront the possibility that the outrage itself may be the product being sold. The emotional responses of fans are real, but are the triggers authentic? Did Jungkook's raised voice emerge from intolerable invasion of privacy, or was it the normal stress of navigating chaotic environments exaggerated beyond proportion? Were Jimin's tears a collapse under the same suffocating weight, or were they repurposed visuals taken from another time and context? Without concrete verification, the line between genuine suffering and orchestrated narrative remains dangerously thin. This is why critical reflection becomes not only appropriate but urgent. Should we, as global audiences, Accept every viral clip as an unquestioned truth? Or should we interrogate the sources, the editing, and the motives behind each upload? If the footage originated from multiple platforms with different agendas, ranging from casual fans to media outlets seeking traffic, how can we claim certainty about its authenticity? To accept without question is to surrender to manipulation. To doubt is to preserve the possibility of truth. Every viewer must confront their own role in this cycle. By replaying the footage endlessly, by sharing, by commenting, by contributing to the viral storm, do we not become complicit in spreading a narrative that may be false? And if so, what does that reveal about our relationship with the idols we claim to protect? Is it love? Or is it exploitation disguised as devotion? These reflections are not comfortable, but they are necessary. The situation invites a final provocation. What if the story we are consuming is not about Jungkook or Jimin at all, but about us? What if the true revelation lies in our hunger for drama, our eagerness to believe, and our reluctance to question? In this light, the incident becomes less about idols breaking under pressure and more about audiences breaking under the weight of their own unexamined expectations. Should that not alarm us even more than the outburst itself? The answers remain elusive, and perhaps they will never be fully clarified. But the responsibility now rests with each reader, each fan, each consumer of media. Will you believe that Jungkook truly lost control and Jimin truly cried, accepting the narrative as presented? Or will you hold your skepticism tightly, refusing to allow emotional manipulation to dictate your judgment? The choice defines not only your interpretation of this incident, but also your participation in a larger culture where truth and spectacle are indistinguishable. This is the weight of the moment. It is not only a story about idols in crisis, but a mirror reflecting our own willingness to question or to surrender. The images of anger and tears will remain, but their meaning is still being written. And so the question remains, sharp and unavoidable. Do you believe what you saw, or are you merely consuming what someone else wanted you to believe? Underneath the weight of speculation, the discussion surrounding Jungkook's visible anger and Jimin's tears has evolved into something much larger than a single incident. It has become a case study in how modern audiences consume, interpret, and weaponize fragments of information. Yet the most disturbing element is not the footage itself, but the ease with which millions accept it as unquestionable truth. Should this not alarm us more than the outburst captured in those few seconds? How do we know whether we are observing fact or performance, reality or manipulation, authenticity or fabrication? The modern media landscape thrives on immediacy. Platforms such as TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter operate on velocity rather than verification. A single clip, stripped of context, can ignite global debate within hours. But when content spreads faster than it can be fact-checked, can we trust the conclusions drawn from it? Is it not possible, perhaps even likely, that we are responding not to truth, but to a constructed illusion designed to maximize attention? This question lingers like a shadow over every reaction, every debate, every headline. Consider the unsettling possibility. What if Jungkook's expression of anger was genuine, yet magnified into a narrative of breakdown far beyond its original scope? Or conversely, what if his movements were misinterpreted altogether, with editing and commentary shaping them into something they were not? The same applies to Jimin's tears. Were they shed at that exact moment for that exact reason? Or were they images lifted from a different context, then stitched into this narrative to intensify its emotional impact? Without verified timelines and direct testimony, can any of us claim certainty? These uncertainties strike at the heart of the modern information economy. Emotional intensity is more valuable than accuracy. Outrage is more profitable than context. Every click, every share, every replay feeds algorithms that reward content regardless of its authenticity. In this environment, how can fans distinguish between genuine warning signs of psychological strain and manufactured spectacles tailored for virality? More importantly, what does our willingness to believe reveal about our relationship with the truth? the paradox deepens when we examine ARMY's role. Fans position themselves as protectors of BTS, defending the group against intrusion and exploitation. Yet by spreading unverified clips, debating endlessly without context, and fueling the storm of speculation, do they not participate in the very mechanisms that erode the idol's dignity? Does devotion still count as love if it perpetuates the harm it claims to resist? This contradiction should not be ignored. Instead, it should be confronted with brutal honesty. We must also ask, who benefits from this narrative? Who gains when millions of fans become entangled in emotional debate over seconds of footage? Media outlets profit from clicks, platforms profit from engagement, and content creators profit from virality. But what do Jungkook and Jimin gain? Certainly not peace, not privacy, not dignity. If the event is genuine, they lose control over their image. If the event is manufactured, they lose authenticity in the public eye. In both cases, they are reduced to symbols, no longer treated as human beings. The implications extend beyond K-pop. This is a reflection of the global culture of celebrity, where the spectacle of collapse is more captivating than the reality of resilience. Audiences demand vulnerability, but only on their own terms. They want idols to be human enough to cry, but not human enough to demand boundaries. They want perfection until imperfection generates more clicks. Does this not expose a profound hypocrisy? And if so, should we not question our complicity in sustaining it? Critical reflection demands uncomfortable honesty. Each viewer who replayed the video must ask, why? Was it to understand? Or was it to experience a thrill of proximity to scandal? Each fan who shared it must ask, for what purpose? Was it to raise awareness, or was it to participate in the spectacle of virality? If our motivations are rooted in entertainment rather than empathy, what does that say about us? Are we truly protecting idols, or are we consuming them?